Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sisterhood Sips. I am Jen, your favorite sister. Today's guest is Caleb. Hi, Caleb.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here today.
We are excited to have you. Let the people know really quickly where they can find you because you're going to want to follow him, I promise you.
My name is Caleb Wilson, and you can find my Instagram at gotta-be-Caleb. And I'm a model here in Vegas, actually. So if you give me a follow, I would super appreciate it.
I'm already following you.
Sweet.
I'm excited about that. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Caleb, we jump right in on Sisterhood Sips,
Perfect.
okay?
Let's do it.
You reached out to me. I was like, mind blown.
Yeah.
Okay, I love learning new things. I love teaching new things here. That is why you watch me on Sisterhood Sips. And you have a sexual orientation I have never heard before.
Yeah.
Autosexual.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's auto. The root word is going to be self, and so basically you can just think about it as a sexual orientation characterized by attraction to the self.
Right.
And so. Yeah, for me, that kind of takes place as a lot of like solo sexual experiences. So it's kind of autoeroticism taken to the extent of a sexual orientation. So for me, like masturbation would be an example of autoeroticism. For me, rather than that just being something to do, it's kind of like that checks my box at the end of the day.
Okay, what do you mean by checks your box?
So, like, to be sexually healthy and content and like satisfied, I don't feel like I need other people to satisfy that relationship.
Okay, that sounds like the safest sex you can ever have, ever.
Honestly, yeah, nobody's there to judge you. It'll be me in the mirror, or actually sometimes I'll even kind of film my own stuff to watch. And that's just like my favorite. I get a lot of joy from just like the solo aspect of it, not having other people around. And I think it's interesting. I've had a lot of struggles kind of accepting it. Now we're at a good point, thankfully. But with it being such a like non-mainstream identity, and also with a lot of social or public perspective of it being like narcissism, it's been pretty weird of a journey to like accept that personally.
Okay, so this sounds like the ultimate self-love. Like we hear that a
Really,
lot.
yeah,
We hear that
yeah.
like you need to love
Especially in
yourself,
this
love
day
yourself.
and
You're
age.
literally loving yourself.
Yeah. And funnily enough, actually, so with sexual orientation, you have, well, with human sexuality, yeah, that's the umbrella term for all of these things. You have sexual orientation, and you also have romantic orientation.
Mhm.
And so for me, I don't consider myself auto-romantic, so I actually have a partner, and his name is Marcus.
Hi, Marcus.
And he lives in LA right now. So we're doing a long distance thing. But it kind of works out for me because at the end of the day, I don't need him
Right.
around for that aspect of our relationship. But like as an autosexual, I have that. I like to have the solo sexual period.
So, Caleb, autosexuality, most people will watch this and just say that is like narcissism on steroids.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you said you film yourself to watch yourself later,
Mhm.
or you'll pleasure yourself in front of a mirror. Do you
Mhm.
think you're that hot?
So there's definitely a little bit of like I'm a model. I
Okay.
definitely recognize that there's some level of aesthetic greatness. However, for me personally, like I still have a lot of actual physical insecurities. I don't think I'm like aesthetically perfect in any kind of way. It's not narcissism in my opinion because I don't think I'm perfect and I have a lot of capability for empathy. It's just like with autoeroticism, that's completely normal. It's just that taken to the extreme or the extent that it's a sexual orientation, and so yeah.
Yeah. So what I found very interesting about your story
Hmm.
was back in the day. Don't get at me, y'all, but I had a friend,
Hmm.
right? And he was like, "I swear you'd fuck yourself if you could." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" He was like, "I could just tell the way you carry yourself. You'd fuck yourself if you could." And it's the first time I ever thought of, would I fuck myself? Like, if I
Mhm.
didn't know me, would I
Yeah.
be attracted to me? I mean, and I'm sorry, I look in the mirror and I feel like I'm attractive naked,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
when I heard your story, I was like, oh my God, I've thought about that before.
Yeah.
And that's a great question. Would you fuck you? We talk a lot about aesthetics. People work out, people don't work out, people that feel like you should date me no matter what I look like. I want you guys to get naked and look in the mirror and say, would you fuck you? It's a great question.
And if your answer is yes, I wouldn't say that that's leading straight to autosexuality, as all sexuality is a spectrum. So, just like some people might masturbate and that's not super fulfilling to them, other people might find that to really just, like I said, check the box.
Right. Now,
Um,
do you think that, relations between the genders are quite strained in the current environment, right? So, do you think that you came to this decision because it's just easier to literally like fuck with yourself, rock with yourself, than deal with other personalities? Is that a component to autosexuality where it's like it's just easier to deal with me and not deal with the games that people play and the
mhm.
heartbreak and stuff? Is that a component or am I completely off?
I would say no, as it is a sexual orientation,
Okay.
that is different from a behavior or a choice
Right.
or a medical condition. So, for me, it's not like I just don't want to deal with other people. In fact, for my autosexuality, occasionally will fluctuate, I would say,
Okay.
in the sense that, like, sometimes I really just only want to be with myself, and other times, um, I'll still get a little bit of that, like, regular homosexual attraction, and, like, my partner and I still have full, um, like, regular intercourse,
Mm.
for both of our benefit. But,
Right. Now, how long
um,
have you been with your partner?
we just hit our last first year anniversary, or our first year anniversary last October. So,
Okay, so so who's better in bed, you with yourself or your partner with you?
ooh, I've never thought about that. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, Marcus, but honestly, I do enjoy my personal time more.
Okay.
Um,
Well, that's honest.
yeah,
Mhm.
no, and nothing wrong with him, of course.
Mhm.
But yeah, just because I think that's a little bit more what's going on in my head, if that makes sense. So, and heart
Mhm.
and everywhere else. So,
Mhm. Do you think that your sexual orientation, do you think that it's a safety net in a way where it's like you're not going to give a lot to someone else in a relationship because you're like, I got me to fall back on?
yeah. Actually, no.
Mm.
Like I said, I'm not auto romantic, so I still feel like I really need another person to fulfill like the
Okay.
romantic connection in my life. Um, and so, and I mean, even before I knew or had kind of accepted or understood that to be what's going on, I still was dating guys, and I
Okay.
actually had like what I would call my man whore face in college, where I was
Okay.
probably hooking up once a day, almost, which is just insane
Mhm.
for a while.
Good times. Good
Good
times.
times, good times. He enjoyed it. Now I'm like, "Oh my."
Okay.
But, it'll be funny when everybody, sees me later as a big famous model, and they're like, "I slept with that guy," and I'm like,
Right.
"Oh my." It's gonna be everybody. Um, but yeah, no, I don't think it's like a fallback or a safety net for
Mm.
sure. For a long time, I didn't even understand why I had such an intense connection to, like, my self-image
Mhm.
or things about myself or like the mirror. I actually had a friend in college that would notice that I would like gravitate towards her mirror in her room just randomly if nothing was going on. And I
Mhm.
didn't, this was like before I kind of knew either. And that was one of the telltale signs, I think, as I tried to process like, is this real? Is this
Right.
trauma? Is this something else? I went through a lot of pieces and bits of my life where I was like, does this make sense? And so that was one that I was like, okay, yeah, like, I mean, before this even was a concept in my head, that was a big deal. I look
Now,
a
did
lot
you
at,
did
oh,
you suffer trauma?
yeah, oh yeah, my life's been a mess, but
Mhm.
that's that's the queer
Right.
thing, I think, these
Is that the
days.
MO? Is
Yeah,
that
that's
the okay?
yeah, it's kind
Okay.
of how it is. I think if you're queer, you're gonna have some form of trauma or another, whether that's
Mhm.
from parents or other family or society.
Now, you're gonna piss off some of the queers because some of them are gonna be like, I didn't go through anything. I just love
And
men.
kudos to you if that is your
Okay.
story. I would be shocked to know that you really made it through without any kind of problems, but good for you. I would say that is hopefully the ideal world. So if people are getting
Right.
that, that's awesome.
So what's
Um,
the difference, just so we're clear, what's the difference between autosexual and autoromantic?
yeah, so if you look at human sexuality as a whole, there's a bunch of different kind of pieces to that. So you
Mm-hmm.
have sexual orientation, romantic orientation, as well as gender identity, gender presentation, and then sex. So the difference between sexual orientation and romantic orientation is purely just sex and romance. So um, for sexual orientation, that's the physical, sexual, like what am I feeling, what am I attracted to, and then with romantic orientation, it's just who do I want to love, who do I want to be loved by, kind of thing. It's more of the intimacy without the physical. And so a good example of that, I think, or like a way to see that is like if you think of bisexuality,
Mm-hmm.
you've got a sexual attraction to both female and male genders, and with that, you don't necessarily also have to be biromantic. In fact, I know people who feel like they couldn't have a romantic relationship with females as a girl, but they still like the sexual side of that with women and with men. So it's like they could only, well, not they could choose to, have.
Yeah, we actually had a guest here, and he had sex with men, but
Mhm.
wasn't romantically
Yeah,
into men.
yeah,
He was only romantically into women.
yeah. And so I've wondered if I'm romantically into women at times in my life, but I think
Hmm.
that's a part of kind of growing up and not having our identities as like queer people on the forefront. So
Right.
I feel like I have to kind of subscribe to what's going on around me.
Hmm.
Um,
So what do you say? It kind of sounds like, is there a tinge of autosexuality when just the average person plays with themselves? Isn't that kind of like you dealing with yourself, knowing where you like to be touched? And
yeah,
I mean, I would think there's a little tinge, right?
right, yeah, yeah. Like with autosexuality, it's a spectrum, and so like there's autoeroticism that everybody can kind of get into. And so for me, I feel like when I'm engaging in that, it's so much more intense and like fulfilling, like I said, than I tend to observe other people experience. And especially like within the queer community or like the gay community, especially, I feel like a lot of us don't want to throw out that we're hypersexual because I really
Mm,
don't like that as a
mm. I'm
stereotype.
Puerto Rican.
But like,
I'm used to hearing hypersexual.
yeah, I don't like to subscribe to that so
Right.
much. But that idea,
So speaking of hypersexuality,
mhm.
right? Do you think that that's a stereotype that's unfair, or do you think that the queer community, they're on like what is it, Grinder, and it's like
Yeah.
they meet up casually for sex more than a heterosexual?
I would say my opinion personally perhaps might be biased because I've had personal struggles with what I viewed as a little bit of over hypersexuality from the gay community.
Hmm.
However, I also want to, acknowledge and recognize that that is not everybody, and a lot of the queer people I see that get the attention, are the ones that are doing that. So it's of course going to perpetuate this perspective that that is what's going on. But, like I have plenty of gay friends that aren't like that. I also have friends that are like that, and I think it wouldn't be right to just say that it
Right.
is everybody.
Hmm.
But I think that the perspective tends to definitely look like that because of who's getting
Yeah.
the attention.
And that's an excellent point, because I think that, transcends the queer community, even
Mm.
dealing with ethnicity or race. Like, what I mean? The loudest person is usually the one that it's like, oh, that's how they
Right.
are, right?
Yeah.
But it's like,
Yeah.
no, it's just the person that's getting the most attention. So
Mhm.
that's a great point. I heard the term vanity smurf. Is that
Yes,
what
I
you're
had said.
called?
So I wouldn't like to say that I'm a vanity smurf,
Hmm.
mostly because I think that is a harmful and kind of negative
Really?
stereotype.
Okay. So it's
Just
not
because it
cute. It's not like vanity smurf.
some people might feel that way, but
Okay.
I feel like it's kind of just contributing to that idea that like autosexuality is narcissism, which is a personality disorder and also generally a pretty negative
Mm.
experience. And it's also negative to be told that my orientation is, personal disorder or personality disorder, when, like, for example, narcissism is characterized by a lot of different things that I do not agree or align with, like, whatsoever. There's
Mm.
like the inability to form empathy or
Right.
have empathy. I'm like,
No,
I think
narcissism
it's
is a very serious disorder. Let's put that out there.
yeah.
It's overused and misused. Like
hmm
someone could get cheated on. They're like, he was a narcissist.
Yeah,
No,
that's
he just
just a
just
bad ex.
right, a bad ex or someone
Yeah,
who's unfair or disloyal. So the word narcissist gets thrown around a lot. I wish people would really study it
yeah,
because they see it's a whole disorder. It's a whole different world, and also you just can't diagnose somebody because of
yeah.
something
One
that
thing for sure.
right. So explain to us because I'm very, very intrigued. You said that you film yourself or you watch yourself, pleasure yourself in front of a mirror. When you play it back or when you're
hmm
watching yourself, what is it that you're thinking exactly? Are you thinking completely, wow, that person is really hot that I'm looking at? Or are you thinking about the feeling that you give yourself?
I think I think it's a little bit of both. I know like when I'm watching like there's certain like parts of me that I know I will like focus in on because like that's like the part that's getting me hot and bothered or whatever it is. That's really where like okay yeah this is the physical intensity I'm enjoying. But I also think like it's a lot of just kind of like thinking or the self to self feelings that are going on. And I think that's I don't know if I would say it's like 50-50. It might be more so like the feeling to self. Cause like for example, you were talking about like could I fuck myself?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I've had people ask me if I would fuck a clone, and that I've thought about and I would say
Oh,
no. I think it would be
oh.
super different because it's the separation from the self. Like I don't think I just it seems weird to me because now it's a completely different it's not the self anymore. It's just my body.
I get what you're saying.
So
I
it's
get
and I
exact, but you
think
know what? Then I'm weirder than you,
no,
Caleb, because I would fuck my clone.
hey, to all teach their own. I mean,
I would
that would
fuck
be fun,
my
but yeah, I'm just like I have had that asked to me, and I'm like, gosh,
right.
I I don't think so because it would separate it just enough from self,
Got
that it
it.
wouldn't fulfill that like auto for me.
Again, it sounds like a deep love then,
Yeah, it's real,
because if
and
you wouldn't fuck a clone because it
it's
separates you from
separate.
right.
Yeah, and so and that's what I really feel like characterizes a lot of it. In fact, so I say I'm not autoromantic, but I do at times just like to kind of not like feed into that, but like promote it a little bit. So like I'll go out on what I call like my auto dates. So
What
I'll just
are those?
go. So like I've gone. It'll basically just like be a solo experience. I'll go and just
Okay.
have some kind of what would be a date with somebody else, but I'm just like doing it all by myself. So I've been to the water park. I've been mini golfing. I went bowling once. I've been to the movie a couple of times. I like to take myself out to dinner and just like all by myself. It's just me, myself, and I hanging out, chilling.
Caleb, am I autosexual? Am I? Because
I love the solo.
I
Yeah,
do it all the time.
and
Like
that
I
like self love piece is so.
yeah.
It's like I really love that. Like that feeling of just like I can provide for myself, and it's so much fun. And like I actually I try to push my partner to go out and eat by himself all the time, and he's like, no, no, no,
He's
that's
like,
just
that's
so
not my
weird. I
thing.
can't eat alone.
Oh my, no,
I'm
that
like,
is
no, I
me. Like
love
I go
it.
to the movies alone. I take
Yeah,
myself to
I
dinner.
would hear people make fun of the movies thing too, but I'm like, "Pff, you need to try it.
Yes.
Seriously.
Right.
So,
And wow, wow. I think I see. I'm learning. I'm discovering myself as I interview these wonderful people. So let me ask you a question. When was this discovered? Is this something that turned you on first and then you start searching for what it was, or were you introduced to it and then you started trying it?
funnily, I would say it's a combination. I
Okay.
recognized that I was different after the gay. I had kind of had my homosexual like coming out,
Okay.
and that was freshman year of college.
Hmm.
Leaving college, um, I I knew I was like a little different. I knew I liked the mirror a lot. I kind of recognized that that was like oddly important to me.
Hmm.
Um, and so, and I also knew I spent a lot of time with myself as well. But I didn't even know this like was a thing. Like you had said, you'd never heard of it before. I had never heard of it before. I think what happened, if I remember right, was I stumbled upon the term accidentally, and I was like, "Wait a freaking minute! What the hell is this?" And then I was just like going through, and I was like memories and experiences, and I was like, "This is starting to make sense. This is starting to make sense. I feel whole." Like oh my gosh, it was just like such a I remember crying. I was just like, "Oh my gosh,
Yay.
Like I suddenly don't feel weird anymore because now I
Mm.
have an explanation or a label or whatever it is. You know, it's like, okay, I'm obviously not the only one because this exists as a term. And
And
I don't
that
have
and
to feel alone.
it's so sad that a lot of us have to go through, I'm not as extreme as what you're going through, but it's just sad that a lot of people are different. We're all different.
We
We're
are,
told to be the same, right? Whether
yeah,
it's tradition or religion or society, we're all told to be the same, and we have to go through this rigmarole, this horrible journey to find ourselves when it's
right.
really just accepting yourself.
Yeah, accepting, not even finding
Yeah, it's
sometimes.
not
I
even
would,
fun because you're who you are. It's
yeah,
just like I accept that I'm not going to be like the rest of you, and I'm happy about it
for
now.
real. In fact, moving or going on with like, how did I find out?
Mm.
After finding out, I spent a lot of time kind of like, okay, well, like this exists, but I've had problems in my life. My father actually is a narcissist,
Wow.
and that was a super weird childhood experience. Um, ooh, I just blinked a little bit. That's that PTSD. Um,
So what was your relationship like with your father? Because that's
yeah,
usually every
so
time these shows go on, it's like, well, where was his father? What was that like?
yeah, he surprisingly enough, I was able to come out with him or come out to him, and that was like completely fine. I remember being super worried about it. Um, my relationship with my father was just characterized by a lot of, unfortunately, abuse.
Mm.
And so, yeah,
But you were able to come out to
come out
him,
of
and he
that.
didn't freak out.
Yeah, not at the gay thing. He's just kind of like a bad person,
Okay.
personally, I think to put it simply.
Yeah. And what about your mom? Was she kind of like refuge
She
from?
she was for a long time.
Okay.
I'm having a little bit of mommy issues right now.
Okay.
Just kind of navigating some certain things
Hmm.
with my child and kind of seeking that like, mom, will you apologize for this, that, or whatever,
Yeah.
which I think is normal for kids to want
Oh,
from their
it's
parents.
absolutely normal. Like we
Yeah,
look for that apology, but you may not get it.
that's the part of the mommy issues right now,
You
but
may not
we're
get
working
it.
on it. So,
Right.
but I would say my relationship with my father, I don't even actually maintain anymore, just because he was just not healthy for me.
Okay.
But I remember a lot of in my childhood, he had, and not knowingly, I don't think, but he had a lot of like no arrogance, no self love, like no, or like anytime I displayed any self love, it was like that's arrogance. You're full of yourself. You need to. He would bring me down so that I wasn't in love with myself or anything like
Mhm.
that, which feels a little extra damaging if you think about it, just
Yeah.
because of what was going on. And that also I feel like took me a long time to like navigate whether or not it was a product of that. You know, like, oh, I was on one extreme and now I'm throwing myself on the other,
Right,
or
because
is
I'm
it?
going to ask that
Yeah,
next. Is this
exactly.
a
Do you
result of?
think? And
Right.
so, and I've spent so much time like worrying, like, oh my gosh, am I just mental? And so I actually in college I did a lot of human sexuality courses, and that was so beneficial for this journey for me of like, is this actually normal, or am I just like trying to see a therapist? Which I do, but not for this. So,
Right.
but
I mean, no, I
um,
honestly, I'll be honest, I think it's completely wonderful. I mean,
yeah,
you're not hurting anybody. You're
exactly.
not hurting yourself.
Mhm.
You accept what it is.
Mhm.
I won't call you a vanity smurf, although I think it's cute.
That which is fair. I do love the Smurfs.
It's
I
so
just don't
cute.
like that
Who
idea
doesn't
of
love the
like
smurf? But you're right. They do associate it to
the.
narcissism. So
Mhm.
you don't want that because that puts a negative connotation
Right, and
on
it's
it.
like I don't want people to think I'm full of myself, you know,
Right.
which to some extent my personality might end up being a little bit like that.
Right.
But for real, I do not want to perpetrate that to anybody. So,
Right. And I don't
um,
think being full of yourself is bad, long as you don't hurt anybody else,
additionally, I agree.
right?
I think
Because
there's nothing
usually
wrong with
full of yourself is something that makes other people uncomfortable.
right. Yeah,
At the end of the day, it's like
really.
you're full of yourself, and I'm like, but I'm not hurting you with it,
Yeah.
right?
Stuff for you to deal with if you're having problems. So it's not on me.
Right. So you came out to your dad. That was cool. What about your mom? Was she like, whatever, son?
She told me she knew forever, and that was weird for me. But I was like, yeah, you're probably right.
We know.
Hmm. The
the,
moms
the
know.
the
The moms
moms know.
know.
It's like, well, you're finally saying it, but I knew.
Hmm.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So
And
you said that you may be romantically attracted to women, or you're not sure?
at this point, I don't think so. But when I was
Okay.
kind of going through all of that, like, confusion around these topics, I was like, oh, well, maybe that's a thing. But I dated girls in high school, and I think that was compensating for not or trying not to be gay, if that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense
So
to
I
me.
think like from that, I was like, well, I mean, I felt like that was real in high school, so like maybe I can like women. But I was like, okay, but would I do that now? Probably not. So it's probably not a real thing.
Yeah.
Um, but
And
yeah.
what does your boyfriend, what does Marcus think about the autosexuality? Does he think it's weird? Is he
Yeah,
like,
so I would say we haven't actually talked about it a lot, and it's not
mhm.
anything that I feel like I need from him. But I know that he's fully supportive, to whatever extent that means for him. And we have had like a conversation about, if there's times where like I just need to have like my own sexual experience and like you're not a part of that, I'm sorry, but that is going to be necessary. Um, we'll just have to navigate that when that happens. And he's like, cool.
That's
It's like
something
whatever. So
that's interesting as well, because when whether queer or heterosexual, a lot of people, when they find out their partner is pleasing themselves,
it's
they don't like it.
I used to get in so much trouble in my last relationship for that, and again, I hadn't known at that, or well, I hadn't known at that point, and so I didn't realize why it was so negative to me. But I was like, this is so messed up, and I'm so confused why it like hurts that I'm getting in trouble for masturbating. Like, I also that just seems so weird to me, but I don't know.
Yeah,
So
it's a lot of people find it insulting, like, am I not
yeah,
enough? Why
yeah,
are
which
you
is
pleasing
yeah.
yourself? And I'm like, listen, 99.9% of the time, that person is pleasing themselves how they've been pleasing themselves since they were kids,
Yeah,
basically.
literally,
So it
yeah.
has nothing to do with, you know what I mean, the partner not being enough. It's just it's a very natural thing. So it's interesting. You got in
Yeah.
trouble for it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I got caught a few times, and it was just like a big kind of blow up, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." But so
How
stupid.
dare you
Yeah.
beat off without me?
Yeah. Just like, bro.
Oh my
But
God.
piggybacking on that part where you had said something about childhood, you said something
Yeah.
about that. But one of the ways, oh, so you said how they've been doing it since
Right.
childhood.
Mhm.
One of the main ways actually that I've like kind of confirmed for myself that like, okay, this isn't just some weird thing going on, is kids when they grow up, or as they grow up, they have some kind of age ranges where they like introduce to themselves kind of different sexual experiences. They do that exploration. And so I remember learning about this a lot in college, in my human sexuality courses. And what I did was I kind of like took that knowledge and just translated it to like what would make sense for an autosexual, and looked back at my life. And when I was exploring myself, originally, I actually remember that I would get up in the middle of the night and go into the bathroom and like lock all the doors, or just the door,
Mhm.
and then get naked and get onto the counter and just like look at myself in the mirror when I was like 12 to 16 or whatever. Well, not 16. Actually, that feels a little bit older now, because I think it was like 8 to 7 to like 10-ish, that range that I was on the counter. And then
Okay, now
after
just
that,
do you mean did you pleasure yourself or just look at yourself?
so it was a little bit of both. So like
Mhm.
sometimes I would be just kind of inspecting, I guess I would say. And then
Okay.
other times it was like, okay, like I'm just straight up here on the counter in front of the bathroom mirror, just having a good time. So
All right, so then okay, so it started for you very, very young.
yeah, which I think, a lot of kids will have that
Mhm.
experience as a part of natural human development. Unfortunately, some parents kind of try to cut that off immediately, so it can be hard to like actually get to experience that. And also, there's a lot of weirdness around like what should be acceptable with children and those kinds of things. But that I would say is a natural part of human development. And so that's what I did, instead of, I guess other people would probably look up like stuff on the internet or go to
Right.
the locker room and peek at people. I was instead on the counter at midnight.
Mhm. So
So
about about parenting specifically,
Hmm.
what advice, because there's kids are now open to a
Yeah,
lot of things, and
really.
parents are too. So salute to the parents that are
Hmm.
more open to
For real.
accepting their kids are different. What advice would you give to the parents that are still like, nope, this is how it's going to be, don't touch yourself? What advice would you give? What advice would you have wanted your parents to have at that age?
Honestly, literally any of the human sexuality information that's out there. Shoot, okay. The genderbread model is probably my most favorite graphic to explain human sexuality. If I could go through that with my parents, that would be crazily monumental.
Is that a book?
It's just a single picture, and it's kind of like a model to show you what human sexuality is in kind of like simple terms, and it's called the genderbread model because it's like a little gingerbread man, right? So
Oh.
I believe they show the head as being your gender identity, and then they show like the part between the legs as your or your sex. They kind of show the whole genderbread person as a gender identity, and then they have like a piece that shows you sexual orientation or romantic orientation, and then they kind of display it all as spectrums,
Mhm.
and that you can have also complete one side or like none of it at all, like any sexuality, and then asexual where you don't have sex.
So you're saying the genderbread man
Yeah, or
and
model.
or
Yeah.
model,
Mhm.
and then that's an easy go-to, easy way to
Yeah.
explain gender to parents and to children.
Yeah, it was developed. I think it's gone through like 3 or 4 revisions,
Mhm.
but that was one of the first things I learned in my human sexuality courses, and I think that's just such an introductory, like basic, super informative graphic that really just gives you a whole general like perspective like what this is. And I think if parents were able to see that and
Mm.
be like, okay, like it's not just some weird stuff, there's like it's okay, so I can have this and I can have or I have my sexual orientation and I can be into men, I can be into women, I can be into non-genders, I can be into all genders, I can
Mhm.
be into myself, I can be into no one. There it's really just like options, and,
Mhm.
and where do your preferences lie?
Right.
Um
And then speaking of age and parents, a lot of parents, as you know, I mean, there are laws now
yeah.
being written to stop certain conversations in school and what have you.
Mhm.
What do you think about when they're like, we don't want kids to learn about sex, period, at all, not heterosexual, not queer, not anything until they're like in junior high school? Do you think that's a good thing?
I think that's honestly just super harmful.
Really?
Yeah, I think that I mean I don't agree with like sexualizing children at all whatsoever, but I also do not see informing them about sex as sexualizing them, and I think that that's a weird misperspective that a lot of people have about the
What
situation.
age would you say is safe to start teaching about whatever it is? Heterosexuality,
I would
sexuality,
I
queer?
would probably put it at 8 if I remember right. I think that even in my classes they were saying
8.
as
Okay.
early as 6, but that's just kind of maybe I remember that. So, but I mean, in my own experience and what I've learned, that is around the time where you start to explore those things. I just think that if parents were quicker to have those conversations, and were more informed, there would just be like so much less hurt from everybody.
Mm. I agree. Even if you're not informed, I
Yeah.
think at least be open-minded and
Hmm.
let the child know
Yeah,
that you can talk to me about whatever,
for sure.
baby. At least, even if you don't understand it and even if it scares you, right?
Hmm.
Because as
Right.
parents, we're just trying to protect.
For sure.
So we do a lot of, fucked up shit and say fucked up things out of fear, right? To keep
Yeah.
that child safe. But I think sometimes you just have to bite your tongue and be like, what my kid is saying is crazy, but I have to let them
Let them.
know that
Yeah.
I'm here for them and I love them. And I think that's very, very important. So you don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
You mentioned before the A spectrum. I found
Yes.
that interesting. Can you explain a little bit what the A spectrum is?
Yeah. So that's this kind of umbrella term for all of the identities that are considered. Um, well, it's for the ace identity, and then all of those other identities that kind of have limited or like conditional attraction.
Mhm.
So that would be things like asexual, where you have no sexual attraction, demisexual, where you have to form a romantic connection first, autosexual, where the connection is yourself. There's actually quite a few of them.
Mhm.
think that like fluidity sits under that term. So whether
Mm-hmm.
you're like gender fluid or your sexuality or your orientation, sorry, is fluid,
Mm-hmm.
that would sit on that kind of a spectrum. And it's definitely a lot less mainstream, but I so much more wish that it was mainstream because it's like that's where I think a lot of the information is missing in terms of understanding that like it's more than just gay, lesbian, and all of that. And that even those individual things mean multiple things. Like gay is homosexual and then homo romantic, but that doesn't mean that you have to be both. You know what I mean? You can have
Okay,
there's
so
all
now
these things here,
you're
and it can
you're
be any puzzle piece of
okay.
fitting that you are.
You're scaring the people because they're thinking you're going to add another letter to
Oh, right.
SLGBTQIA
All the
plus.
yeah. There's so much
Are you
there.
trying to add another letter, Caleb?
Not the auto, but the A spectrum, I believe, is one of the A's. So it should
Okay.
be.
So it's 2S plus, but the A is for.
I believe it's for the A spectrum, yeah.
Oh,
Or
look at
it.
the A spectrum.
I think I've also seen two A's. I can't remember what the other A is.
Okay.
But yeah, I know
And
that
is
that's.
there a flag for
Yes,
autosexual?
I'm actually wearing my colors today.
Oh,
So
okay.
the blue is the top stripe, and then gray is the bottom stripe, and it is self-compassion, and then the connection to the spectrum. And
Wow.
so some of them will have a heart in the middle.
Hmm. I saw the
With
one with the
a
heart in the middle
yeah,
and the
with the
little
arrow.
arrow.
Yeah, and I can't remember what that means. I believe it's like circulating, so it's like all within the self, I believe is what that is, but I
Mhm.
can't quite remember. And then just self-love. It's the
Now, I'm
heart. So
interested in just of my own personal being nosy. The first thing you said asexual means no sexual attraction.
yeah.
What is that?
So asexual is just you don't have sexual attraction.
To
So
anything or anybody?
yes, yeah.
Isn't that like having like a low libido or whatever?
I would consider it different because libido is again just how much. Well, I don't know what a specific definition would be, but I see that as like how often I'm participating or having those feelings or anything like that. That's confusing.
But asexual is completely like I
Just
don't
I
want
don't have the
any
attraction.
attraction to
Yeah,
anything, you, me, playing with myself, him, her. I have no attraction.
yeah.
That's
And
interesting.
so that one, yeah, I do find interesting a lot because I'm like, I do not know what it feels like to never have any kind of sexual gratification or anything
Well,
like
nuns
that.
do it,
But
right? I think nuns and religious people probably are
probably
conditioned
practice
to,
it, yeah, for
right.
sure.
I'm sure there are a lot of men out there that are like, my wife is an asexual. She never thinks about it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, that one, yeah, just people not wanting to have sex is pretty much what I understand about that. I do know that whether or not the sexual attract or like even if the sexual attraction isn't there, that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have sex. So there are still ace people who might be like not ace romantic, so they still want a partner, and then that partner still has a sexual aspect that they're willing to fulfill. Or I've heard I don't quite understand the difference. I can see that there is one, but I've heard that also some ace people um, will still have sex for the physical pleasure, which is separate from the sexual pleasure. I would have to ask somebody who is ace about what that means, but because
Right.
I would see those as the same.
Right.
But yeah,
So, what do you think about because an issue the norms have the normies,
right.
right? I just call them that for lack
Me
of a better
too,
term,
actually.
the normies. So, what do you think about when they complain for whatever reason? Because people complain about things that have nothing to do with them. We know
Right.
that. But what do you feel about? They're like, oh, they're adding another letter or they're adding another flag. Do you think that it's a hell and high time that all of this does come to be and come to pass because people are so different? Do you think it's a good thing? I think it's a good thing because it just frees a lot of people and a lot of BS,
Yeah,
in my opinion. And I'm like, you can keep adding letters. Like it doesn't, again, if it doesn't mess with me, my money, and my children, I
yeah,
really don't care.
right.
But some people are perturbed by it. But I think
Yeah.
it's a good thing. But do you think that the letters diminish it or make it silly? Or do you think it's actually a good thing?
I think the root of that is that people want to feel community, and so
Mhm.
if adding the extra letters now makes them represented, then hell yeah, let's do it. I don't see why there's any problem with that.
Mhm.
I also know that the plus is there, and so sometimes I'm like, I'm not going to say everything. I just am going to do the LGBTQ plus. Honestly, I usually stick with the Q.
Yeah.
But
So I'm over here, a normie saying to us LGBTQIA plus.
and you absolutely can, and I think that's I've seen that quite a few times as well. But for
Right.
me, and perhaps this wouldn't be widely accepted by the rest of me or my community, but I do stick to the LGBTQ plus, and I think that the plus represents everybody else. I think the Q and the plus kind of represents everybody else.
Right.
If you want to throw the extra letters in there to feel extra represented, I think that's totally fine. Like for example, LGBTQ plus, I'm in the plus now and I don't have a letter, so but that does not personally bother me.
You're like, I don't need a letter. I
Yeah,
have a plus.
I'm just happy that there's the community that exists. So
Right. Okay, so autosexual. Have you ever broken up with yourself?
no, which I've gotten in some interesting, personal dilemmas that I'm like I feel like actually I can get. I feel like I have such an intense level of like self-awareness that it's not a separation from self because I think that would actually be a little bit of mental problem.
But you mean like me wanting to fuck my clone?
No. But maybe. But
That's
no.
it. I need a therapist. Okay, Caleb. So do you know any other autosexuals? How popular is this thing? Is there a Facebook group? Is there a group chat? Like how popular is this?
Yeah, so I used to follow an Instagram page actually. So there's a couple of things like that I would say that definitely exist. But overall, really, I've only actually ever been able to speak with two other autosexuals, and I've never actually met in person another autosexual. So
I think I'm one. So we're three
Heck
now.
yeah,
Are we four?
hey. That's
I
awesome.
think I have to ponder when I go.
Yeah, a little bit of,
Right.
but yeah, I've only ever met or spoken with two, and I remember it felt very special the first time because I was just like, okay, I've finally kind of really accepted this identity, and I'm past all of the like, is this real? Am I crazy? Blah blah blah. And I was just like, okay, like now I'd love to talk to somebody else. Like what other people like me think? What do we feel? What's going on? And so I remember I put on my Snapchat story that I was just like, damn, I would give anything right now to just have a conversation with another autosexual. And crazily enough, some random, I like barely even knew them, but they were on my Snapchat, I guess, reached out to me and said that they had a friend and they hooked us up. And now we will chat every once in a while on our Snap, and it's just like so cool. So
Oh my God, I love it. And
Yeah.
this is the beauty of this show because now people are going to be in the comments.
Yeah.
Hey, me too.
For real.
That's what that was. Like
Yeah.
that's what it is that I'm feeling. So I'm just ecstatic that you joined us
Yes,
today.
and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I mean, your story was amazing. I read the email and I was like, oh my God, like, I have to have him in here. A lot of us, myself included, we're all learning something new. And this is what bravery looks like. That word gets thrown around a lot. It gets thrown around a lot, but this really is brave because you're even straying from the whole LGBTQ, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
thing. And this is something new to a lot of people. It was new to me, but I have a funny feeling it's going to help a lot of people.
I hope so. That's really my biggest dream and hope with this was just to be able to push a little bit more of those spectrum identities and my own, and just like if there's other people out there that are alone, you're not anymore. I'm here too.
Yeah, and I think I'm with you too. I don't know. On that note, thank you so much for being here, Caleb. This was freaking awesome. Please come back.
Absolutely.
I'd love
If
to
you'd
have
like
you
to have
back.
me again, I'm down.
Okay, this doesn't have to be your only visit. Mi casa, su casa. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, by all means, follow Caleb. Be nice.
Feel free to
and
DM.
Absolutely DM. Leave questions in the comments. And thank you so much for joining us again. This has been Sisterhood Sips.